Hello and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rich Longo, and I'll be your host. Thank you for joining us for another Flycast Partners webinar. Today's webinar is Cherwell Tips and Tricks presented by Kyle Hamilton. Kyle is a software engineer for Flycast Partners with over 25 years experience in the IT service management space. His career started as a network engineer for Pro Systems and was quickly hired by Network Associates as a professional services consultant where he delivered ITSM solutions around the world for thousands of customers. Kyle's primary focus is on ITIL processes and architecture. His extensive knowledge of CMDB, asset management projects, and also deals with automation and management solutions such as BMC Client Management and BMC Discovery. Kyle has been a certified consultant for Front Range, Peregrine Software, BMC Remedy Force, Service Desk Express, BMC Discovery, BMC Client Management, Cherwell, as well as being ITIL certified and Microsoft MCSE and many others. Before we get started with today's presentation, Kyle, let me introduce our organization. Flycast Partners is here to deliver a seriously amazing IT experience. Founded and staffed by personnel that have many years of experience in the IT space, we took the best ideas from these collective experiences and added the best components necessary to grow and become a leading value-added reseller in the North American IT market. We offer best-in-class implementation services and training in ITSM, ITAM, and workload automation spaces using ITIL best practices. Our professional services can easily scale up or down in order to meet the needs of any customer regardless of size, complexity, or budgetary restrictions. We offer implementation services both on-site and remote, as well as training to reinforce your company's long-term IT success. Ongoing administration and support service offerings will enable your organization to focus on your normal day-to-day operations, saving you both time and money. Please visit our website at www.flycastpartners.com or simply give us a call at 844-FLYCAST. That's 844-359-2278. This is just one of many weekly webinars that we host here at Flycast Partners, and I encourage you and your coworkers to research our website for topics that interest you. Take advantage of our ITSM Solutions Finder, research some industry white papers and data sheets, and look at available training for ITIL to ITSM and ITM tools. Now, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and turn this presentation over to Kyle Hamilton for Cherwell Tips and Tricks. It's all you, Kyle.
Thank you very much. And before I continue on, can you hear me okay, Rich?
I hear you fine, and I see your screen even better.
Okay, fantastic, fantastic. Well, thank you everybody once again for joining. My name is Kyle Hamilton. I'm here to present today some Cherwell tips and tricks on the Cherwell Service Management tool. And I know based on our registrants that we've got a mix of both, old Cherwell customers, existing Cherwell customers, and customers looking at Cherwell Service Management as a potential solution. So I hope today's topics will provide a good coverage, I guess, to address both the old and new for those that are familiar with Cherwell, as well as those that are just kind of poking around and looking to see what Cherwell might offer your environment or organization. So without further ado, we'll get started. And like I tend to do with all of the products that I demonstrate, one of my biggest tips and recommendations, I should say, maybe not a trick, but a recommendation for all customers, both existing and potential, is to make sure that you're aware that there is a very active community online. And I mention this for all of the tips and tricks webinars because I see in almost all cases that many of the questions that customers ask that attend these webinars, the vast majority of those questions are already sitting out here on the communities portal and have been answered. So this is a great way if you're an existing customer or you're just trying to get a feel for the functionality for Cherwell and find out what it does well. how it works. This is a great way to get engaged and to find out more about the tool, be able to interact with other customers that have many of the same problems and many of the same questions that I see on the sign-up sheet for the webinar. And what I would recommend is not only that you get engaged, but again, if you have questions, this is a great place to be able to ask those questions. You can see as I scroll through here on the communities page, you can see there's active conversations going back and forth about different topics, whether it be, how do I get my dashboard grid sorted the way that I want? How do I get dashboard widgets added onto my dashboard, which is going to be one of the tips and tricks that I'm going to actually show you today as we get into the tool. But this is a great way to get a majority of your questions answered very quickly without having to wait for a response from Cherwell or from your vendor or anybody else that you may be dealing with. In addition to that, what I'll say is one of the things you always want to look for when you have a question is look for the recently answered topics. This is a very valid or very common topic dealing with the REST API, because many customers want to know, how do I integrate with Cherwell? How can I tie in different tools, whether that be Microsoft SCCM, whether it be an event management tool or some type of alarm tool that's running in the environment. You can do a topical search, find an article, and what I always tell customers is always look for the green, right? You always want to look for the green responses being those that are being flagged as the correct response, the response that you really want to pay attention to, because you might see many in a list, some of them good responsive, some of them not so good. So always look for the green in the case when you're browsing the community portal. It's also important because there are active calendars that you'll find so that you can become engaged in the user groups. Another good way to become familiar with Cherwell, if you're a current user, or to find out more about Cherwell, is to participate, whether it's via telephone or by your attendance, to the user groups that may be occurring in your area. So you can always check the community forum to find out what's going on near you, and we always recommend that you get involved and get engaged in those. Another great way to share information. Another tool that ties in directly to Cherwell that I want to talk about and provide a little background on is the idea of an MAP, or a mergeable application for Cherwell. One of the big strengths of the Cherwell Service Management tool is the fact that with these mergeable applications, it allows customers the ability to expand the functionality of Cherwell far outside of IT service management, beyond incident, beyond problem, beyond change management, into other areas that far, outside of ITIL and the typical ITIL processes. It's a way, as you can see, for customers to ask or present ideas for upcoming maps or additional mergeable applications that may be desired. And it's a way for you to be able to browse what's called the map exchange, where you can go and actually find pre-built mergeable applications that you can download and simply install into your environment. Think of these as anywhere from an individual component, say a form, or maybe a workflow process, like a one-step action, which is a way to automate actions within Cherwell, or in some cases, entirely built and complete modules. For example, things like IT project management, which is a big one. The ability to have a mergeable application that you can see you can simply download and install into your Cherwell environment, and have everything pre-built and laid out for you, from the forms to the workflow processes to reports to dashboard views, everything that you need, so that you can potentially find something in the map exchange that would circumvent the need for you to have to sit down and build all of this yourself. It makes it very easy for customers to be able to download these maps, install them directly into your system in minutes, and have all of the functionality, in this case around IT project tracking. So a vast wealth of knowledge and a lot of important information can be garnered from the community site. So always a big recommendation of mine is whether you're an existing customer or potential customer, is to get engaged and take some time spending, reviewing the communities page to find out a little bit more about the product and find out about perhaps some maps that might be available that would help you with a particular need in your environment. Now, I've talked a little bit about the communities. Now, the second piece I want to mention before, and let's go ahead and we'll dive into this view real quick, and I'll mention why. I'll kind of explain why I'm saying this. I know we have some existing customers, and again, in almost all cases on these webinars, we have customers that are running previous versions of the product. Always important to stay in touch with the community, to make sure that you're updated and upgraded to the latest and greatest. If anybody's attended, previous webinars related to Cherwell, or you are currently running a previous version of Cherwell, you'll note by looking here at what's referred to as the Cherwell customer portal that with the latest version 8, there's some dramatic changes in the look and feel and the view of this Cherwell portal. This is the latest kind of scheme or format for the Cherwell portal, but it's also important to note that Cherwell is one of the most easily and highly customizable products that you're going to find within the marketplace. There's virtually nothing you can't modify or adjust within the Cherwell system, and it's important to note that it's all completely codeless, doesn't require any scripting, doesn't require a development staff or anybody to have developmental level skills to be able to come in and make configuration changes to the portal. A couple of examples just to show you. Again, this is kind of the out-of-the-box new version with 8. There is a default or a secondary portal that's also available, just to kind of give you a simple idea of what a different look and feel might appear like. In this case, some simple color scheme changes, different graphics, maybe a few different options on the screen, but a very simple change. Now, if you want to take that to the extreme, I always like to show you that within Cherwell, we like to eat our own dog food, so to speak. So we're actually using the Cherwell portal for our own internal use. And this kind of gives a brief example of how far you can take the modifications to the portal to suit your business needs and to suit your requirements. Again, this is the exact same portal we were looking at before, just highly modified around the Flycast partners and our business process, but a completely different look and feel. And you can see it's not at all like the out-of-the-box version. So you can take this in virtually any direction you want to take it without limitations and without having to write any code or any scripting around that. So it's important to note that it makes it very simple for you to make those kind of changes so that the portal presents the information you want it to present in a nice, easy, understandable format, but giving you the look and feel that you desire. So with that, let me touch on a couple of items in the Cherwell portal of note. Some of these, again, dramatically different than what you see in some other products. Number one thing I like is the ability to, beyond simply changing the look and feel, to get access to information that's typically not available through the customer portal in many products. As you can see, there's some quick to grab items up here at the top of the portal where I can quickly see, my existing requests, my existing incidents, so that I can easily log in here, pull this up and look up status, have a conversation, communicate back and forth with IT staff if I've got up-to-date information or have additional details I'd like to provide. It also enables me to get access to notices. This feature I like because this relates directly to problems that have workarounds that have been identified in the environment. So these are items that IT's already been made aware of. They're working on potential, long-term or full resolution, but until then, they can publish this as a notice to the customers through the portal so that they can see, what the description of the problem as well as that potential workaround, so that users can come out here and potentially find a workaround to a solution without having to pick up the phone, without having to send an email, without having to submit a ticket, and perhaps, get back to work quickly. Saving not only time, but saving the hassle of having to pick up the phone and contact the service desk. So nice to have some quick to grab items. And again, you can easily configure what those items are and whether they're available or whether you'd like to pull those down. It's also nice to be able to have access to be able to see what items or devices you have within your possession. So if you have laptops assigned to you, if you have desktops, you have telephone or telco equipment, software, all of those configuration items or assets that are assigned to you can easily be presented here so that you know what you have. You can click on those and actually see details. Another nice feature is to be able to see over on the right-hand side immediately a list of all of the incidents that you have submitted that are related to your desktop or to your laptop or whatever it is that you're looking at. You'll also notice right over kind of at the right-hand part of the left-hand pane, it allows me from here as I'm browsing a particular device to click on a simple link to create an incident for this device. So you'll notice it automatically pulls me into the ticket submission form. It's populated information related to the asset or device that I'm having the problem with. And then, of course, I can come in here and add additional details. Maybe I'm having issues, let's see, sending and receiving email. Right, so I no longer have to define, on my desktop or on my laptop. It's all identified by virtue of the fact that I've selected that link directly from that asset. So it saves me some time and hassle from having to describe or indicate which item I'm actually having the problem or the error with. And it saves potential time from the service desk having to come back and prompt the user or ask the user for those questions after the fact. Another nice thing I like about the way Cherwell handles their incident submission is you'll notice the questions over here on the side. In a lot of cases, with a lot of products that I've dealt with in the past, and most of the products still out there today, one of the prompts or one of the questions that typically gets asked is, what is the priority of this particular outage or issue that you're reporting? And then they'll present, either, priority 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It might be gold, silver, platinum, low, medium, high, however they term it. But in almost all cases, when you ask a customer that type of question, of course, the typical response is always going to be high or platinum or, number 1. Because, of course, they feel that their issue is always the most critical and the most important. The way that Cherwell handles it here is by simply asking a couple of simple questions and then mapping those questions back to a priority rather than asking the user for that priority directly. A great way to configure a system so that you get an accurate priority assigned without actually asking the user for the priority. So in this case, does it affect more than yourself? Does it affect multiple users? No, it's just myself. Is this preventing you from doing your work? Yes, I can't work if I can't, communicate and send email back and forth. So just by simple virtue of answering a couple of questions, you're able to get the details related to the asset to which that particular outage or error corresponds to, as well as getting the information that allows you as IT staff and service desk to be able to prioritize that issue as it comes in along with everything else that's being submitted. So a nice way to be able to create incidents within Cherwell easily that relate to a specific asset without having or forcing the user to provide all of that information through field selection or by typing a large block of text. Now, it's also important to note that through here, the users can also browse a detailed service catalog. And this is important for a lot of users because not only do you want your customers to be able to submit the typical break-fix issues, I can't access the internet or I can't get to the accounting system or whatever the case may be, but they may be requests far outside of the typical break-fix, dealing with facilities, dealing with HR, dealing with reservations, things like I need a conference room or I need a projector set up for me so that I'm ready to go for a meeting. So you'll see these are broken down by category and subcategory. You'll see that I could scroll down everything from desktop management requests to telephony requests to IT service desk requests, similar to what we just looked at in submitting an incident. I just did it a different way by submitting it directly off of the asset. Well, let's take the example of a new hire request, for example, because we're going to go through this, and I'm going to go through a couple of tips and tricks to show you how you could potentially modify the look and feel of this and show you how you can add some fields and use those fields to validate those fields against existing information. And I'll show you what I mean in just a moment. So in this case, you'll notice this allows me to provide the user with a specific form, a specific template based on the type of request, not just the standard break fix or outage form that we just saw, but a form that actually prompts me for specific information. So here, I can type in, of course, the new hire name. So maybe we type in, we're hiring Sandra Evans. Maybe this is going to be a VIP user. Which department is she going to belong in? We'll say she's in administration, full-time, part-time, contractor. And of course, each one of those selections, especially like the status, can allow you to associate different workflow with each of those. Things like, the full-time employee may require an assigned parking space and a security badge, whereas a contractor is going to be around short-term, might not need the parking space assigned. They can park in a visitor spot. They don't need the ID badge because they're only going to be here for one day. They can use a temp badge, things like that. So you can vary the workflow based on the selections being made. In this case, we'll say she's going to work out of her home office, and we'll say she's going to start this here shortly before Christmas. Now, you'll notice as I scroll down in the form, you can also use this to build out requests for all of the equipment, software, access to particular systems that the user may need. And these are some of the out-of-the-box flavors, but it's also very easy to go in through table management and add additional options into this drop-down. So if the iMac 24-inch desktop isn't your standard for desktop machines, you can easily go in and adjust that to reflect whatever approved options for computers you have within your environment. You see on the right-hand side, you can also add cost information, so it can start totaling up the cost of all of the equipment that's being requested, everything from the computer to mobile devices, as an example. So as they go through and fulfill or make each request, we're actually totaling everything up in the background. Same thing here with software packages. What type of software do they need? Are they a standard user? Are they going to be performing development within the environment? Do they need a cubicle or desk? Do they need network access? Each one of these corresponding in the background to another work item or task that's going to be automatically generated as the user submits this and we begin to fulfill this request. Now you'll also notice down here at the bottom, and again, something new that's been added with version 8 for those of y'all on previous versions is the concept of a shopping cart. Similar to Amazon or other on-site shopping services you might have used in the past, users can go through here and make different requests and add those to the shopping cart. And I can either continue shopping by going back and maybe browsing the catalog and then requesting a conference room or requesting, a parking space assignment, whatever else I might need. Or if I'm done with all of the orders that I need to place, I can simply submit this order from the cart, having everything in there that's needed. Again, drastically different from the previous version in that you really just submitted things kind of one-off, one at a time. This way it allows you to easily stack up those requests just like you would in an online cart and then go through a checkout process essentially to be able to submit those. So again, nice changes to the out-of-the-box version, but again, easily configured to suit your needs, whether it be changing the content of the service catalog itself or just overall changing the look and feel of the portal. Now that I've kind of showed you that out-of-the-box version, one of the things I wanted to go through is some of the admin features here real quickly to show you how we could potentially modify that new hire form, maybe add some additional information, capture some additional detail. And Cherwell does this in a very nice way through what's called blueprints. Blueprints allow you to go in and essentially craft new functionality, whether that be a form, whether that be additional fields to capture information, or whether that be a brand new object, like adding a project object, for example, and building a project request form and adding fields to it. One of the nice things about the blueprint functionality is, much like having a test dev environment, blueprints allow you to go in and make changes, make modifications to the system, and essentially work in a live, in operation environment without immediately, having those changes visible to the user. So you can come in here and make modifications, make changes to the blueprints, but until we actually go through the process of what's called publishing that blueprint, anything that I do within here is not made live or active or is going to appear on anybody's screen or make any changes immediately. So it gives me the opportunity to come in here, make changes, make sure everything's functioning the way that I want, and then once I get it set up, I can simply publish that blueprint so that those changes then become visible to my users. So in this case, let's take a look at that new hire form that we just saw in the self-service portal. Now, I'll show you one thing here at the top. When I talk about current view, you'll see a couple of different views. If you remember when I looked at the portal, I showed that initial view and then I flipped over to the secondary view. It had a little bit different graphic, a little bit different color scheme and look and feel to it, a couple different options. That refers directly to the portal default and that portal secondary. You'll see if I look back here, it shows me that right here. Here's the default and here's that secondary site. So I can make changes to either one independent of each other, so that I might want to make modifications to the secondary site but not have any modification or those same modifications reflected in the primary. There's also within here the default, which corresponds to the new hire form as it would be viewed by an IT staff member. So in this case, if I want to make changes, I want to make sure that I'm looking at changes for the portal default so that I make sure I'm updating that view or that form or that object for my customers that are using the Cherwell portal. Now to do that, I'm going to change from looking at major objects to the supporting objects. You'll see this list expands or adjusts for me to show me all of those supporting objects. And if I scroll down here in the list, you'll see under the category of specifics, I can see essentially a list of my service catalog items. Everything that we saw in the portal, from a mailbox request to employee update, information, to update my disk quote, my disk storage space, whatever the case may be. And you'll notice right here, I'm going to open this up a little bit so we can see it. Right here is my new employee request. Now you'll notice when I select that new employee catalog item, it'll provide me different options over on the right. I can edit the business object, which we're going to look at in just a moment. I can edit the form, right, which will actually bring up the exact form we just saw. And this makes it very easy for you to be able to come in and make adjustments to the form, which we're about to do. So let me go back, and we're going to show you exactly how to do that. So first, let's say, in this case, in terms of requesting a new employee, I want to add functionality to that form that will allow the person submitting to request to have a new employee set up that is a clone of an existing employee. So I can go in and say I need an employee set up, and rather than having to go through and make a bunch of selections, I simply want to say clone, David's current environment, or clone Susan's current environment, so that users can easily then go in and pull up that user's environment and be able to just simply make a copy of it and set up a new user using that. So we'll have to go through a couple of different steps. First, I'm going to go and edit the business object. You'll see the business object allows me to see all of those fields of information that are being captured in that new employee request form. Right? And down here at the bottom, what we're going to do is we're going to add a couple of new fields. First field, we're going to call clone user. Okay, and we're going to make this a checkbox field. And in Cherwell terms, that's going to be termed a logical field. So essentially a yes/no field. That'll be the first one. Do we want to clone? Yes or no? It'll be simple checkbox. Second, we're going to add a field here. We'll call this user to clone. All right, and we'll make this a text field. Let's make it, let's make it 50 characters in length. Okay, and with this one, I'm just going to simply double click on this field. I can also click on the little field properties button at the bottom if I have that selected, either way. And you'll see it brings up a form where I can now adjust the properties of this field. And in this particular case, I don't want the user to have to simply type a name in there that they know into that text field. I want this to be, a field that gets validated. And let me back up real fast because I need to make sure and save my field link. Let's just put it at 42 and leave it at that. I don't want them to have to, know the name that they want to clone. I want to make sure that that name gets validated against a list of current users. So through here, I can simply go into this validate option, and I'm going to say I want to validate the entry into this field, and I want to validate this from the current table. And again, in Cherwell parlance, this would be our internal customer. Let's see here. Where we get to it. I can find it. Oh, sorry, it's not lookup table. All tables. My bad. So we're going to look for customer internal. There we go. So I want to make sure that we're looking at, our customer table of existing customers. So instead of having to type that name in, it can simply turn that text field into a drop-down list that can be populated with all the values for all of the customers that exist in that table. And I want to populate that list from that table using the full name of the user, right? That way, when the user goes in and makes that selection in that field, you can see it's now showing as a validated list rather than just being a text box you type into. It's going to add a drop-down arrow, and they'll be able to click that drop-down and make a selection from it so we know exactly which user to clone from. Now that we've got the fields added, what I want to do now is go ahead and publish this to make those changes active, of course. I don't want to save it in this particular case. And in most cases in a production environment, you would go ahead and save that so that you can refer back to it or use it in the future. And this is going to make all of those changes, active for me so that I can actually use them. Now I'm going to go back to that same object. I'm still on the portal default, still right where I was. Instead of going into edit business object, however, we're going to go back to that edit form. Now in here, maybe when we're going down here and we're setting up, let's see, access, and let's go down to the bottom here under software, maybe right in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of highlight and grab all of this. Whoop. I'm going to grab everything in here. I can get a good grab on it all. Do it from here. There we go. I'm going to just move that down a little bit just so we get a little bit of space. And again, I just kind of took my cursor and kind of drag and dropped and selected all of those fields at once so I can move them as a group. So that I have some space in here in which to add my fields. Because as you saw before, when they start picking software and hardware, this value field here is actually going to pop up that little graphic of the software icon and things like that. So we need a little bit of space underneath it. Now, if you look over here into my employee fields, now we're going to go back and look for my fields we just created. Let's look for, here's my user to clone. So let's go ahead and add that one. And let's look for my clone user field. There we go, right here. And I'll drag and drop that on there. So you can see how easy it is to add additional fields of information that you may want to capture, whether they're text fields, checkbox fields, graphics, logos, you name it. Very easy to go in and modify that object, add those, and then lay those out on the form as you need. And you can see, much like with many editing applications, it would be photo or video editing, you have some nice layout options that are available. So I can take these fields, and you can see there's some buttons up here that will allow me maybe to align those fields, so I can make sure everything's aligned and not, things kind of out of alignment or, at angles to each other. Make sure everything looks good on the form and I'm not creating something that looks kind of off. And now in some cases, you can see if I've got different sizes of the fields, that may still create a little off. So you can always go in and manually adjust, you select the one, manually adjust the field simply by adjusting the size. In this case, we'll make this a little bit larger. So you can see now I've got kind of the user to clone tab that's at the beginning kind of centered around that. And I can pull this in a little bit closer if I want it to appear, closer to the actual label. So now I've got a couple of new fields added. Now all I need to do is go ahead and save this. Oops, sorry. Bad. I want to go back up here and actually go to publish instead of save. And again, I'm not going to worry about saving it in this particular case. So now we've gone in, we've added a few new fields to the object. We've added those fields to the form. I've published the blueprint to make those changes active. Now you'll notice it tells me that the application server may take a few minutes for those changes to get picked up. Rather than wait for that, what I typically like to do is just go ahead and reboot or restart the IIS server. That way, as it restarts, those changes become active immediately, and I'm not having to sit around and wait on that. So I'll close that down. Then we can go back to my end user portal, in which case I probably lost my connection since I just killed the server, so we're going to need to log in again. It's going to pop that up here for me. And you'll see those changes to that new higher form immediately reflected in the form that we're going to see here. So I'm going to log back in as Alex, sign back in, and we'll go back to the catalog, go back to my new employee setup, and I should now have two new fields of information on my form that I can now populate. Now, as soon as we're done here, I'm also going to then flip in and we'll show you how to, or number one, I'm going to show you a little bit about the dashboards, but also show you how to modify and utilize the dashboard. But quickly, you can see here now, I've got my box checked so I can indicate I want to clone an existing user. Because it's validated, it's already populated that list that originally was set as text with a list of those users coming directly from that internal table. So as new users get created and added to the system, I don't have to worry about coming back and adding another item into a pick list, which a lot of applications require. I'm able to just simply continue creating customers as I would in the customer table normally, and those names will automatically appear here in my new employee setup. So again, within 5 to 10 minutes, you can go in and make modifications not only to the look and feel, but the fields that are presented, how they're populated, pulling data from other areas of the system, and dramatically alter the workflow and the process that's followed when requesting a new employee, as an example. Now, this has all been from the perspective of the customer in the Cherwell portal. So I wanted to take a moment to show you the actual user interface, which is primarily through the Cherwell dashboard view. Cherwell dashboard is, again, probably one of the most powerful tools that Cherwell offers. As you can see, these dashboards can be configured to show a lot of very important and relevant information. You can have an entire library of these dashboards. This is simply set as the default dashboard, the global IT dashboard, which kind of presents, you can see, kind of an overall feel, open changes, open problems, open tasks, open incidents. And with any of these little widgets that you see within here, as they're referred to, I can easily click on one of those, and in some cases, it'll take me directly to a list of incidents. In this case, it drills me down to another dashboard that's kind of a dashboard within a dashboard, so that now instead of looking at incident data and problem data and other related data, now I'm just looking at details related to those 30 incidents that are sitting in the system. If I want to continue to drill down and look at that list, I can. I just drill down one more level, and now I'm looking at that list of 30, and I can scroll through this list, and I can also paginate through this list by using the arrows up at the top. So very easy and simple way for you to be able to find what you're looking for simply by accessing the dashboards and either drilling down or selecting the items you want. Another key point that I like to make in looking at these dashboards is you'll notice in a lot of cases there's some great information not only here, but if I actually change to, let's say, an executive dashboard. Let's see, let's look at the executive dashboard. This presents, kind of a manager's perspective or an executive level perspective, rather than showing, here's 30 incidents or here's, the 9 problems that are currently open. A view of, things like performance and, trend analysis. What is our mean time to resolve a typical incident, and how has that been changing over time? Is it increasing? Are we on a decreasing slope? First call resolution percentages. A lot of important information that's right at the fingertips for executives and managers looking to get a feel for how is the service desk performing, not just how many incidents do I have assigned or how many service requests do I have to respond to. And I like to call this out because in a lot of products that you look at in the marketplace, they'll tell you that things like MTTR, mean time to repair, mean time to resolve, first call resolution percentages, things like that are available to you. However, the problem is you're going to be required to come up with the calculation for that. You're going to have to come up with an equation that's going to actually provide that mean time to repair. What values do we use? Do we use the open date and time, or the close date and time, or the resolve date and time? And in some cases, it can become very difficult. With Cherwell, those again are simple widgets you can drag and drop onto these dashboards without having to be a math major to be able to get to that information. So a lot of good information available right out of the box without having to spend time building a lot of complex equations to get you the information you're looking for. Let me go back quickly to the global dashboard, and I want to show you again how easy it is to configure and make changes to the environment. Now I'm using what we call the desktop client to be able to do this. It's also important to note that there are other clients available. There's also a web-based client so that you don't have to have anything installed on your desktop to access this dashboard, for example. There's also what's referred to as the dashboard viewer and a report viewer. Important for managers and executives that aren't going to be spending time resolving incidents and resolving and working on service requests, but they want to be able to get in here and see that mean time to repair and first call resolution percentages and things like that. So there's different viewers available, also including mobile for both iOS and Android devices that don't require a license. Right, so that if they're not going to be responding, if they're not going to be working on a request or working on an incident, no need to tie up a Cherwell license for that. We can simply give them the dashboard viewer, allow them to get to this same data, but not consume a Cherwell license just to simply be able to look at a chart and a graph to see what performance looks like. Now let's say, for example, I like this global IT dashboard, but I need or want some additional information presented. You can see I can simply, from this desktop client, go into the edit mode, and what it'll do is actually bring me up a list, kind of an edit view like you see here on my screen. And over on the left-hand side are all of those pre-built widgets, that library of widgets that I mentioned. And you'll see there's widgets in all different categories, from self-service information to IT manager type widgets, looking at total requests and total incidents, things like that. Let me take another executive view here, and let's say let's look at open incidents by department as an example. Let's say that's a piece of information I'd like to have on this global dashboard. All I have to do is grab that and drag and drop that here onto my dashboard. Now, I might, want to go through here and start deleting, other items if I want to make space. I can also collapse and modify the size of this to fit accordingly. So if I want to make it something that's going to fit into the existing environment, I can easily just put that right up here at the top, maybe expand it a little bit more so it has more prominence and matches up with maybe the alignment of those and you see I get it all kind of laid out. And there's a lot of control within the widgets that even current customers are unfamiliar with. For example, maybe I want to change the color of this to bring more prominence or highlight to it. So maybe we say we want to change the background color to a little bit different color. Maybe, let's see, something will make sure we could view it. Let's just say, let's make it yellow, right? Maybe bring a little bit more highlight to it if I want. There's also the ability within the widget properties to provide different graphical views. So you can see it could be a chart. It could be there's different kinds of gauges that are available. This one's been laid out as a chart. Let me actually show you one that you could actually make a simple modification to. So let's say I want to also bring out this open incidents and requests, similar to like you see down here, the 659 number, which is what you see. But instead of showing it like it's being displayed down here, maybe I want to show it in a little bit different manner. So again, I'll assign a background color to it and match it in with the environment. But then I want to say, I don't want just a numerical value on there. I want this to appear a little differently. So I want this to be maybe a speedometer, for example, right, as a way to show it, or some kind of I like the angular gauge here. Let's see right here. So some different views that you can actually use to present that information, whether it be everything from like a digital clock to a thermometer, right? Different ways to show that data. And that makes it easy for you to change and update the look and feel of these dashboards very easily. And again, all I have to do is simply hit the save button to save these changes to this dashboard and then have them presented to every user looking at this global IT dashboard going forward. But as you can see, a lot of flexibility within the tool. And one thing I like to always preach is the R&D philosophy, which is rip off and duplicate. It's very easy to take the existing widgets, the existing forms, things like that. Take something that's very close to what you're looking for rather than having to start from scratch and build the dashboard from scratch. Just go in and find one that's very close and start ripping it off, right? Just make some subtle changes. Maybe you want to change the look and feel of an existing, widget. So I can come in here for any of these and make that same type of change to change the look and feel as it's presented on the form so that it looks the way that I want it to. So again, one of the nice things about Cherwell is very simple to configure. You'll notice I haven't touched any code, no scripting. I could do all of this in minutes and have a very different look and feel to the entire application. So a lot of flexibility and gives users the ability to really meld this into the environment the way that they want. Now, I like to be cognizant of time, and I know we're right up against our time limit. So I wanted to say thank you again for everybody's attendance. And I know if there are any questions that you've submitted via the question at Q&A box, we will get back with you and respond to those questions that you may have. Also tell you that if you have any questions or want to simply sit down for a one-on-one and dive deeper into Cherwell, talk more about the topics we looked at here today, or maybe other topics, please feel free to reach out. Contact us at Cherwell, but we'll be happy to get back with you and set up a one-on-one, or simply respond to you and shoot those answers over to you directly.
Very good, Kyle. Thank you so much for the presentation today, and thank you for taking time out of your busy day to do this. I want to definitely echo what Kyle just said. Should you have any questions at all, please, by all means, email us at info@flycastpartners.com or give us a call, 844-FLYCAST. That's 844-359-2278, and we'll be happy to get back to you right away with questions. We can help you out with actually showing you the product one-on-one. If that's something that you're looking for, we'd be more than happy to do that. But Flycast Partners is here to help in any way that we possibly can. With that being said, I'm going to thank all of you for taking time out of your busy day as well. And I'm going to wish you a great rest of the week and a great weekend. And until next time.